Welcome to The Bridge, the show that bridges the gap between Eastern and Western medicine, science and spirituality, physical and energetic health. If you're seeking to heal from within, ultimately achieving the pinnacle of health and well-being for your mind, body, and spirit, then rest assured, this show is tailored just for you. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. I'm a heart-centered, Harvard-trained epidemiologist, researcher, medical intuitive, and transformational health and longevity doctor. Basically, I find the clues that every other health practitioner misses because they're looking in the wrong place. Welcome back to The Bridge, a transformational health podcast with yours truly, Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. Let's just take a couple of deep breaths together, podcast family. Breathe in with me. Fill your lungs all the way up to the very bottom with air. Take a nice deep breath in. And let it all out. Slower and bigger this time with me. Take a deep breath in. Fill your lungs all the way to the bottom with air. Pause at the top of your inhale. Gather a little more air. And let it all out through your mouth. Even bigger, even slower. Fill your lungs even more than you think you can this time. One more deep breath in together. Hold. Open your mouth and let it all out. Maybe even take a nice big sigh like I just did. Let out some noise. Let out some stress. Let out some shit and some crap that you don't need like I just did. And we've landed. And now we're here. And now we're connected. And now we're present together. Podcast family, I've missed you so much. I promised myself I wasn't going to get emotional, but you know what? I'm here to be me and all of me because that's what you need and that's what I need and that's what the world needs. And I hope you are going to always do the same thing. I had to take an unexpected pause on this podcast. So if you've been wondering where I've been, stay tuned because that's what today's episode is all about. On January 17th, something really negative happened to me inside of a traditional doctor's office. I'm going to tell you that story. And my life still has not yet returned to complete optimal health and well-being, but I am certainly on my way. But there was quite a while there where I was not able to communicate due to the extraordinary amount of pain, discomfort, and suffering that I was experiencing. And the reason it was because it was oral pain, jaw pain. And if you're not new to the podcast, then you know that I am certainly no stranger to severe chronic pain, symptoms, and setbacks. And if you are new to the show, then welcome. First of all, I am so honored and grateful that you're here with us all. It was certainly divinely planned. So know that you're never here by an accident and never here by a coincidence. So welcome. And if you are new, I hope you can feel the love that I intentionally radiate at all times when I am here in this space, because I need you to know this is always a space where we can all be free to be all of us, all that we are, all that we need to be. So getting back to the point, as you all now know, I am no stranger to chronic pain, symptoms, and setbacks. And I feel that I've been taken on a journey in this lifetime to experience a wide range of different types of pain, symptoms, and setbacks. And just when I think that I've experienced every kind of pain that there is out there to feel, the universe takes me on a whole new journey, and I realize that there's something else that I still haven't felt, a new kind of pain. And so I want to talk to you about pain, but that's not what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Today, I'm just going to tell you the story of what I've been going through. What I want you all to know out there is that I know that every single one of you listening, if you yourself have not had a negative experience inside of a doctor's office, I know that you know somebody that has. And if you or that somebody have had a negative experience, I'm also certain that you've likely had more than one. And those experiences may span across different types of practitioners. I've been there too. We're all in good company. We're all connected. We all share these things in common. You are not and never are alone if you are out there experiencing something, some kind of chronic symptom, pain, setback, or acute, whatever it is, acute, chronic, new, old. It's not easy. It's not easy to experience pain, to navigate pain, but I unfortunately have become quite an expert at it over the years, over these past almost 20 years now. But today, what I want to talk to you about as I tell you the story of what I've been going through is something really important to me, and that is your intuition. I'm all about intuition. So I'm a Harvard trained epidemiologist, researcher, health and longevity doctor, but I am the both and. I'm a medical intuitive. I have recently become a Reiki master teacher practitioner, the highest level that any person can achieve. And I'm really proud of that and excited about it. And I'm also a medium and a channeler. And I integrate all that I am into this one being to serve you in the most unique way that I possibly can. We've talked a lot on this show about what being healthy really means and what the definitions of health and healthy really are. And I have to tell you, I really feel strongly that what we think being healthy is, I think we've got it all wrong. What I think being healthy means now more than ever before is being connected to yourself, to your intuition, to your inner voice, regardless of whether you're navigating a period of symptoms, setbacks, pain, or a great time full of peace, calmness, positivity, happiness, contentment, a period of time where you feel free from any type of pain, symptoms, setbacks, or negative experiences in that way. But the thing is, we're always all going to experience negative and positive experiences on our health journeys throughout our lives. So to expect that we arrive at some time and place where we get to just, quote, be healthy indefinitely forever, I don't really believe that's a real thing. We may perceive that there are people out there, especially now with the internet and social media, that, quote unquote, have got their shit together and are perfectly healthy and have no problems, but I can promise you that is absolutely not the case. Being healthy is being connected to you. Can you listen to your inner voice in the midst of all the noise around you? Even when the doctors are telling you things you don't want to hear. Can you believe yourself and your voice when they're telling you something different? Can you trust yourself? When that inner voice is telling you that something's not right, can you honor it? Can you listen to it instead of ignoring it? That's what being healthy is being connected to you. And I hope that through the course of this lifetime and on this show and through any way and in any capacity in which I get to connect with you and serve you, if I can do one thing and one thing only, I hope that it is teach you not only that you have an intuition that it's been there all along, but to teach you to connect to it, to listen to it, to love it, to create a relationship with it, to let it be your guide, your compass. And I actually have some really cool research I'm going to tell you about that emphasizes this later on the show. But let's dive in and let me just tell you what's been going on and emphasize that throughout this story today, what I really want to hit home on is how often do we all bypass our own intuition? Because back in January, I didn't listen immediately when I knew something was wrong. And here I am, and it's April 22nd, over 3 months later. So back in January, I had set up a couple of dental appointments because I believe in maintaining optimal health and well-being. And so I go to certain specialists, such as a dentist. I'm a female, so I go to an OBGYN. And I get those checkups regularly, make sure that my teeth are clean, make sure that my reproductive health is optimal. So back in January, I had a visit to the dentist. I was told I needed a crown put on my tooth. I can tell you, I have never had anything like that done before, and I was petrified. Now, part of the reason I was petrified is because several years ago, when I was living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I had a very traumatic experience. The first time I've ever had any type of negative or traumatic experience at a dentist's office. And now I have to tell you, any of you out there who have dental trauma, who fear going to the dentist, even if you've never had a traumatic experience, no, I completely understand. But when I was back in Pittsburgh, I simply just needed a cavity filled. And it was in my lower left jaw, and my back molar. And that's called T18, tooth 18. And I had the tooth drilled. Well, they didn't know at the time, and neither did I, that apparently I'm one of those fortunate, rare people that does not respond to Novocaine. Now, I hadn't known this because I'd never needed a filling or anything. So I'd always had really good oral health. And I was grateful that I'd made it so far into my life without needing any type of treatment or procedure. So I got the Novocaine, they started drilling, and I felt everything, and it was awful. So, of course, they stopped, but I was already traumatized. I was literally, my entire body was shaking because I was so scared. So they ended up giving me additional and different types of pain medication and did successfully finish that procedure. What made the trauma even worse, unfortunately, was that within the next year, I had to go back and have another cavity filled. This time, I reminded them of the issue that happened the first time in an effort to prevent it from happening again, except that this time they just didn't listen to me and they re-traumatized me. They started drilling again. I felt everything again. And so my reaction this time was even more severe because I'd already had it happen once. So I left those experiences in Pittsburgh behind with just a lot of trauma and fear. And so when I came to Florida and saw a dentist here, I immediately went in and told them this on my very first visit. So this was documented, recorded. When I met the dentist who was going to be working with me for the first time, I verbally told him about this experience and how important it is to me that I establish myself at a practice where I feel safe and I can trust the practitioners. Well, this doctor told me that I needed a crown, like I said. So I had that done on January 3rd, and everything was fine. And I'm telling you this part of the story for a reason, because I had a really positive experience and I felt like that helped me start to heal all the trauma I'd had from dental procedures before. So it was great. I had this crown put on, and later that same day, I was out and about with my sweet soulmate. We went to the botanical gardens. We even went out to dinner. I felt completely fine. Everything was good. Now, on that day, the dentist told me that the tooth next to it was also going to need a crown, and I remember being surprised. I didn't question it. I scheduled the procedure for January 17th. And my life has not been the same since that day. I will tell you that on January 17th, I went to have the crown put on, the second crown. Now, they had given me a pill called triazolam, which is a sedative. I was conscious, so I was awake, but I was sedated in a conscious state. But I will tell you all, regardless of the fact that I was sedated, I knew something was wrong immediately after that procedure. I was still at the dentist. Something wasn't right. It just didn't feel right. Something just didn't feel right. So this was the first time during this experience that my intuition was communicating with me. I knew something was wrong immediately, but I didn't listen. I didn't do a thing. The dentist just told me to go home. I figured, even though I felt a little off, that since the first procedure went so well, a few weeks prior that, I'd feel fine the next day. However, the next day I did not feel fine. Some time passed. I continued to not feel fine. And I want to tell you all that each and every day, I was functioning, but I felt pain, discomfort, inflammation. I couldn't chew right. I could still hear that voice, my intuition telling me something's just not right here, but I didn't listen. And because I had this prior trauma, I was also afraid. So it was a combination of fear and doubt. And I thought, okay, I'm just afraid. I don't want to have any more problems. I'm scared. I have this trauma from the past. I don't know what's wrong. What if another problem's brewing? I was scared. So I kept telling myself, it's going to be fine. We're just going to keep going. It's going to be fine. And I just kept going through the motions of life. On January 30th, I went back, and it wasn't to follow up about the crown procedure. It was actually to pick up a mouth guard and a retainer because unfortunately I do grind my teeth. We can talk about that and the true root cause that I'm working on healing on another episode. But I'm a proactive person. I work to maintain optimal health and well-being at all times because I hold it as one of my highest values. So when I went to get the retainer and mouth guard put on and fitted, I did see the same dentist who put the crown on. And here's again another red alert. My intuition was on fire. We're talking neon red lights, fireworks are going off, and I'm just doing nothing. The dentist came in the room, and when he saw me for the first time, he looked at me and his expression immediately changed. It's an expression that I can tell you to describe it to you. I can only interpret it as the kind of look somebody gives you when they are worried that you're going to figure something out. They don't want you to know. They're hoping you're not going to figure out what's something negative that happened and they're concerned. So he had this very concerned look on his face, and he looked at me and all he said was, and I quote, "Do you remember what happened when you were here last?" And as soon as he said that, my intuition again, fireworks, fire, flaming road flares. Okay. If my intuition could become a human, it would have been waving road flares, shooting off fireworks, screaming at me with a megaphone saying, "Whoa, red alert." So inside, my intuition saying to me, why does he have a look on his face like he's wondering if you remember what he did wrong? But do you know what I did? I didn't say a word. I just looked at him and said, "I remember I had a crown put on." And he seemed very relieved and said, "Okay, yes, that's what happened." What I should have said was, "Why don't you tell me what happened?" Because clearly he made a mistake. Now, as a doctor, and to all doctors out there, that sounds to me like the wrong question. In fact, a question was not what I expected. What I expected as a patient was for him to say, "How are things going since the crown? I expect well. Let me explain what happened while you were here last since you were partially sedated." Right? Why wouldn't you just walk me through it? But he didn't. And he disclosed nothing. I went home on January 30th with my retainer and my mouth guard, suffering. I know a lot of you know what I mean by that, especially those of you who have ever lived with any type of long-term pain or symptoms, even if they're acute and not chronic, right? You kind of do that thing where it's there, you try to compartmentalize the pain and just go through your day. You go into survival mode, right? And you just keep going. And we go into this weird zone. Where is that zone? What should we call that zone? Like, what's that zone we go into where we just adapt to living with the pain and discomfort instead of advocating for ourselves? I don't know why I did nothing, but I didn't do anything. I can tell you it was driven primarily by fear. I spent the month of February suffering, and with each passing day, the symptoms got worse. My birthday was on February 20th, and I'm one of those people that I actually really love my birthday. I really enjoy it. I enjoy getting older. I would never want to go back to my former self, to my younger years. I love life and I love growing and I love growing older because with age comes wisdom and experience and growth. And I love to look back and just reflect on how much I've grown and changed. But my birthday came and passed, and I was just praying, convincing myself irrationally that things were going to get better somehow, some way. But I suffered through the month of February. By the time my birthday came, things were getting worse. And I remember thinking, okay, I need to call. I'm going to call next week. Now, the first week of March, my husband and I were planning to go and visit our parents, and that required traveling to different parts of Florida. Now, of course, that time came and I had not yet done anything. I was still in pain, still suffering. Symptoms are still getting worse, slowly but surely. And we're about to leave for this trip. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I could hear my intuition and I'm thinking, I can't ignore this anymore. Something's not right. I know it. I know it. So when I get back from our trip, I'm going to call immediately and make an appointment. Well, we came back from our trip and I did not call and immediately make an appointment. I waited for about a week. And at that point, the pain had started to get so bad that we're talking on a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being the worst pain imaginable. We're getting close to a 10. So for me, and you're talking to a woman who's survived a near-death experience with the worst pain imaginable, for me to say I'm at a 10, we're talking next level pain like you can't imagine. So we get further into the middle of March. I'm still suffering, and I finally call and I tell them I'm not okay, that I need to come in and be seen. So on March 19th, I went and saw the same doctor who did the crown procedure. I explained my symptoms, and he told me nothing. He did not tell me that there were any errors made. He just said that it must be that my bite is off. And it was, and I could tell that was part of the problem, but I didn't feel that was the whole story. Something else was still happening inside my mouth, deep in my jaw, and I just didn't know what it was because I'm not a dentist. I didn't go to school for that. And I will never pretend to be an expert at something that I'm not. So I remember the doctor saying to me word for word, and I quote, "That's a dentist's greatest failure, is not getting your patient's bite right." I remember hearing my intuition say, maybe a dentist's greatest failure is whenever he makes a mistake and doesn't bother to tell his patient about it. But of course, I was being nice. Don't rock the boat. And not being my real self, and I didn't listen to my intuition. So he did shave my tooth down that day and adjusted my bite, sent me home, and told me, I bet by tomorrow you're going to feel a lot better. Now, by this time, I was now taking over-the-counter Tylenol and ibuprofen 24 hours a day just to manage the pain. Now, I don't take any type of pain medication. I try to avoid over-the-counter medications at all costs unless it's necessary. But again, I believe in the both and. There is a time and place when we need those things, and I was at that time and place. I emphasized to him I had been taking those things over the counter. In fact, because I understand prescriptions, I knew how to give myself a prescription level dose using over-the-counter medications, and that's what I was doing. He said to me, I bet by tomorrow you're not going to need that stuff anymore. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, great. So I went home. And nothing changed. In fact, the pain and the symptoms got worse. On March 25th, I was in such bad shape, I really believed I was going to need to go to the hospital. I was so scared. I called and told the dentist's office what was going on and that I needed to be seen, so they scheduled me an appointment for the following day. Now, at this point, I'm not necessarily trusting the doctor who did this to me because he's not disclosing all of the information to me. So my husband was sweet enough to call the dentist office as well that same day, speak to the office manager, and tell them that we wanted a different doctor. I needed to be seen and evaluated by somebody completely different. So on March 26th, I went and saw a different doctor at that same practice. Now, that doctor tells me that he's reviewed the record from my crown procedure on the 17th, and it states that the procedure was normal. Now, here's where we cross paths with yet another problem, my sweet podcast family. It is illegal, and I need you all to hear this. If you ever need to collect records or navigating a problem like this for yourself or someone you know and love, it is illegal for a doctor not to disclose in writing in the written record of a procedure, of a follow-up visit, of an appointment. It is illegal for a doctor not to document in those notes everything that happened during a procedure, and that includes anything negative that may have happened that was a potential risk. Well, why didn't my file from my crown procedure on the 17th state that something went wrong? Well, I knew something went wrong. So again, here we have a problem. A potential falsification of medical records that is illegal. Now, I talk with this doctor at length. I explain my symptoms. He feels that I need an emergency root canal. So I go back home and I suffer through pain one more night, hoping it will be the last. And on March 27th, I go back to the same dentist's office and I have a root canal. This is days before Easter. And I did really like the endodontist who did the root canal. We did the root canal that day. The root canal was successful. He sent me home with nothing to manage the pain and said to me, I bet by tomorrow, you're not even going to need Tylenol anymore. And I remember just taking this huge sigh of relief and thinking, oh, thank goodness, this is finally going to be over. I'm finally going to feel better. Now, before this root canal, let me explain to you that I was not able to live my life. I couldn't eat or drink. Even room temperature liquids like water would bother me. So I would push everything over to the right side of my mouth, which was the quote, current good side, to chew, to swallow, to anything. I was doing everything over there. I felt my bite was all off. My jaw was sore. I had this deep pain. I was having nerve pain that was running all along my bottom jawline. I could feel this nerve type sensation running all the way up, even into my teeth. Nothing felt right. Everything felt swollen. My bite felt off. I felt like there was some deep pulsating pain happening underneath my tooth. I was having sharp pains and constant pains. I was experiencing several different kinds of pain all at once. And I was so hopeful for this root canal. So I went home and I suffered beyond anything I could have ever imagined. The day of the procedure was the best day because I had been put on all different kinds of numbing medication. So my face was numb. And for the first time, I had some relief. But then the day after the root canal, oh boy, I was in excruciating, extraordinary pain. My parents were in a different state. I'm calling my husband, my parents, I'm in tears. I was scared I was going to have to go to the hospital. So I suffered through the next 5 days alone. Easter, I spent in bed in my pajamas, scared, so scared. Scared I was going to have to go to the hospital. Scared something was really seriously wrong that was going to threaten my life, my face, my voice, something permanent. No idea what's going on. The over-the-counter Tylenol and ibuprofen that I'm taking, even at prescription strength, are barely helping me survive. The Monday after Easter comes and they send me a message to check on me, and I tell them about the situation. So I get another follow-up appointment, April 1st. I go back, I see the endodontist who did the root canal. He gives me a prescription for steroids and antibiotics and feels I'm a good candidate for these medications. He's not sure I need the antibiotics, but he gives them to me proactively. He also gives me Novocaine and numbs my face that day because I'm in so much pain. It's intolerable. Just to help me get some relief, they had to numb my entire face and send me home. He tells me he feels strongly by the next day I'm going to feel better. And I have a feeling you know that I'm about to tell you that unfortunately the next day I did not feel better. And then again on April 3rd, I went back, saw him again, and he gave me another prescription for what's called Tylenol with codeine, basically. So it had an additive in it that would help me just be able to get through some sleep. I have to tell you all, it really didn't make a difference. I was already giving myself so much Tylenol that it was the equivalent of what he had prescribed me. And it wasn't helping any beyond what I was already doing for myself. So another week passes. I'm still symptomatic. And on April 10th, I go back for another follow up. This time I see the same endodontist. He says to me, we're going to wait a month. So right now I'm scheduled to go back on May 8th. I'm supposed to, on that date, see him along with the dentist who did the crown procedure so that together they can finish my root canal. So I had a root canal almost a month ago and it is still unfinished because it has not yet been safe enough to do that. And then he said something to me that I want to tell you all. Don't you ever let anyone say things like this to you. He said to me, you must just be a slow healer. I'm not a slow healer. I know I'm not a slow healer because on January 3rd, I had a crown put on and less than 24 hours later, I was feeling like $1,000,000. 18 years ago, I was 24 hours away from death. I was in septic shock. I said goodbye to my entire family because they told me I could not survive, but somehow, some way, I'm still here. I would call that a strong immune system. I'm not a slow healer. I'm a fighter. So what they don't know yet is that we will not be finishing my root canal on May 8th when I go back, whether I'm still experiencing symptoms or not, because that man will never put his hands near or on me ever again. What I'm going to do that day is something that I should have done so many times in this lifetime. I'm going to go stand up for myself. So get ready because I'm going to be sharing this story with you all in real time. There may unfortunately be a legal case here I have to pursue. Being fully transparent with you all of the time, and that includes going through this experience, is really important to me because I know I'm not alone and I know there are countless people all over the world having these kinds of experiences inside of health practitioners' offices of every type. And we need to take our power back. And I want you to advocate for yourself. So don't forget when you are in doctor's offices that they work for us. We are the ones paying them. So we're in charge, not the other way around. We get to call the shots, not the other way around. They don't get to assign us labels. We get to decide what our outcomes are going to be. And quantum physics proves it. So on May 8th, I'll be going back and I'm going to review the calendar and timeline I just reviewed with all of you succinctly and in brief detail. And then I'm going to ask him to tell me exactly what he did to me. And I'm going to expect him to answer. Will he? Will he? Won't he? We'll find out, but I'll let you know. And I do know that everything happens to me for a reason. And it's so I can learn, grow, and serve you all even better. And I have to tell you all what this made me realize is, why do we do this? How many times do each and every one of us do this? How many times, I wonder, have you heard that voice? Oh, something's not right here. That's not right. Something doesn't feel right, whether it's about your health or any other circumstance in your life. But here we're talking about your health. How many times have you had a little pain, felt a little something, and heard that voice tell you to take an action and you just didn't listen or you ignored it? How many times inside of a doctor's office have you been in a conversation when they've told you something that just didn't feel aligned for you or rubbed you the wrong way and you heard that little voice, but you didn't speak up? How many times have you wanted to ask a question, but you stayed quiet anyway? We have to listen to ourselves. We have to listen to our intuition. Some of the best advice that we can all get, and some of the best advice I can give you: follow your inner voice, follow your intuition. It's time that we all take our power back. We've been trained to give it away when it comes to our health and well-being when we know ourselves best. In fact, recent data suggests that intuition provides extra sensory artillery that helps integrate thoughts, thereby enabling better decision making. So that means we're pushing our intuition aside all the time, when if we just included it in the decision-making process, we would most likely make better choices for ourselves. In fact, Tel Aviv University's Marius Usher found in some research that when people made choices based only on instinct, so following only intuition, they made the right call up to 90% of the time. And other researchers have estimated that 80% of successful CEOs in business have an intuitive decision-making style. So it's not about whether using our intuition is better or worse. No, it's about how can we integrate our intuition to make better decisions and get optimal results for ourselves. So I wonder how many of you out there are acknowledging your intuition, are listening to your gut feelings when you are experiencing something, even outside of the realm of your health and well-being, when you experience a situation. Do you listen to that inner voice or do you brush it away? Another famous psychologist, Carl Jung, argued that intuition is not the opposite of rationality, but instead a sophisticated way of chunking data or connecting dots subconsciously based on experiences or sixth sense, in other words. So it's important. It's an integral part of who you are. And I have to tell you, from the more energetic spiritual perspective, that intuition, your inner voice, that thing, that voice, is the closest thing that you will ever have to source, to God, if that's what you call God, to the universe, to divine wisdom, to truth, to you, to unconditional love. That voice is the thing that's the closest to all of those things. So why wouldn't we want to follow the advice that's coming from a place that is the closest to all of those things? That means it's the voice that knows us best, the truest version of who we are. Yet so often we bypass it and we just don't listen. And this experience that I'm going through right now in real time has taught me what a massive mistake and error that is. So please don't bypass your intuition. Please listen to that voice inside of you. And if you're wondering what it sounds like or how to pick up on it, one of the best ways that I can explain it to you is, you know how sometimes things just pop into your mind? That's your intuition. That's coming from a source other than you, but that is somehow, some way still a part of you and divinely integrated into you and connected to you and with you. So one of my mentors has always said this, and I love it. And so I love to pass it on. And it's stop with the pop. When something pops in, when you feel that voice, when you have that gut feeling, It doesn't, right? It doesn't always come in as a voice. That's just one way, but it could come in as a feeling, as that gut instinctual feeling like something's not right here. Or you might feel it in your heart, and it might just feel like a contraction in your heart. The way that we each experience it could be different for you than it is for me, but the popping, that inner knowing, that feeling in your heart, those are very common ways that we all can connect to our intuition. But let me remind you that it's there, and it never, ever, ever leaves you, and you do not need to go looking for it. You were born with it, and you couldn't get rid of it if you tried. But there are many ways that we all disconnect ourselves from it when we live a human experience. And that, to me, is what knocks us out of alignment with being optimally healthy and well. So I'm here to remind you that being healthy is about being connected to yourself. And I encourage you to go out and listen to that inner voice. Let it be your guide. Maybe just today you go out and you do that and see what transpires. What happens that maybe is different than what you would have normally expected if you wouldn't have listened to your intuition. Start to play with this out there in the real world. Start to listen. See what happens if just one day you let yourself make one decision based on your intuition that you normally wouldn't have. And I have a feeling you're going to be really pleasantly surprised. Our intuition tells us things sometimes that our rational brains will say, no, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem right. That's not right. That's not logical. Logical is just not always the way of life. And again, there's also research that shows even our hearts have their own, quote, brains, right? They can guide you too. And maybe it's time that we start to let our hearts and our intuitions guide the way. I have a feeling that it can lead to a lot of extraordinary things, not just optimal health for each and every one of us. I love you all. I've missed you so much. Thank you for being with me today. My jaw is starting to get sore from talking, so I'm going to end our episode. But our next episode, we're going to talk more about this. I'll give you an update on how things are going. And we're going to talk about pain. And then we're also going to talk about healing environments. So stay tuned for those episodes coming up. If any of you out there have had an experience like this, doesn't have to be with a dentist. If you want to share it and you'd like a space to tell your story, please reach out and send an email to our support box. You can see that link in the show notes here. And I'll be so looking forward to connecting with you next time. In the meantime, I hope you can feel the big, gigantic, intentional wave of love, supportive, and empowering energy that I'm sending to surround you all today. Thank you so much for listening to The Bridge, a transformational health podcast with yours truly, Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. If you enjoyed the show today, it would mean so very much to me if you subscribe to the show and leave an honest, positive review. You can easily subscribe by going to the upper right-hand corner of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and press the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. Also, be sure to sign up for my email list and join our private community to get even more content, value, and support on your health and well-being journey. You'll find these links in the show notes. Sending you so much positive and supportive energy today. I really hope you can feel it.